Hey, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, and today I want to talk some more about Bleeding Edge. Now, if you cast your mind back to E3 this year, Bleeding Edge is of course the brand new game announced by Ninja Theory. It is one of the new games they're working on. It's not the only thing. For those of you that were hoping for a more kind of quote-unquote Ninja Theory traditional game, something more in line with, say, like Hellblade, they're still working on that stuff. But this is a game they've been working on for quite some time, and honestly, it's a game you should definitely not be sleeping on. I had a chance to play it at E3, and at the time we put together a hands-on video, myself, TwoSixNine and Paradise Central, talking about our impressions and why this was so much fun to play. And today I want to talk some more about it because while information is still pretty limited, the official website has had some updates. It's given some more information on characters. They've recently revealed a new stage they'll be adding to the technical alpha, and basically I just want to go over everything we currently know. So for those of you guys that are potentially looking forward to this game, or for those of you guys that were maybe on the fence, then hopefully this can give you a better picture as to what the game has to offer. So if you do enjoy this, then like would be super appreciated. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, or if you have any questions.
Firewall.
Now, starting off top level, for those of you that perhaps haven't heard of it before, then broadly speaking, Bleeding Edge is a 4v4 team fighter. It fuses combo mechanics with third-person action. So if you ever played one of those kind of hero action games, hero shooter, something kind of like Overwatch, then that's basically the space we're working in, albeit this one has a much greater focus on melee combat. It's not exclusively melee, but whereas a lot of those ones, you typically have like first-person camera angle, shooting guns, things like that, this is definitely much more combo and melee focused, so it has that kind of fighting game feel combined with, say, third-person action. So all up, you have like a really cool, interesting recipe that we haven't really seen before. We've seen kind of, hero games or this sort of hero genre with melee options in combat, but we haven't really had one that is so predominantly melee focused.
Come here, sugar.
The gift of stillness. My life was put.
As for the world itself, the top level sort of story setting, so to speak, is that Bleeding Edge is set some 50 years in the future, where augmentation has basically become commonplace, albeit controlled by a small handful of pharmaceutical monopolies, as is always the case. They've got to get their money somewhere, then they kind of dominate most of the space. But Bleeding Edge itself draws comparisons to, say, Fight Club, because a lot of the characters that you play as, a lot of the characters in the game, are these sort of band of misfits that are effectively body hacking enthusiasts. They've kind of done all these augments themselves, and they go around the globe with the intention of one day democratizing access to human enhancement technology. So that's kind of the backstory for it. But let's talk about the stuff that you really care about, and that is of course the characters. Characters and the whole sort of class system in game is broken down predominantly into three classes. You have your heavies, you have your assassins, and you have your support. So you can then kind of liken that to like tank, DPS, and healer, although, support is not necessarily always just healer. Support can be other stuff as well, but principally, those are your three classes: heavy, assassin, and support. Now, right now, there are currently 10 characters to choose from. However, recently on the official website, they have added 2 more silhouettes, bringing that current total up to 12, which will of course provide you with a slightly more balanced layout of the classes, because currently 10 is broken into 3 heavies, 4 assassins, and 3 support. But of course, with the addition of 2 more, then I'd imagine we'd be looking at a 4-4-4 model. But if we speak about some of the characters, then they're actually incredibly interesting. So the base kind of foundation for the characters is that they are broken into abilities, specials, and supers. Abilities are basically your foundation, your kind of basic moves, so to speak. This influences your regular attacks. It'll influence how you move around the level for some of the characters, things like double jumps, or the way you move, or movement speed buffs. And sometimes it'll also include either passive things or evasive abilities. Basically, these are the sort of things that you just have inherently by selecting this character. You then have a selection of 3 different special moves, and these of course work around a cooldown. So these are your slightly more powerful moves. These are the sort of things you'll use to turn the tide in battle, the sort of things you can use to create synergies with your team, and they're the sort of things that basically you're going to want to save for the right moments and not necessarily just spam them indefinitely. And then you have your supers. Every character has a choice of 2 supers. Before a match, you can pick which one you want to use, and then as you play through the game, as you attack, as you fight, as you progress, and then when you max it out, you can use that for some devastating damage.
Shockwave!
Ride the lightning.
Now, to give you a very quick overview of the characters, we're going to go through super quickly. I'll probably dive into these much deeper once I actually get a chance to record gameplay myself in-game. But for the time being, you have Buttercup, who is one of the heavies. She has, for her basic abilities, she just fires sword blades. She can slice through enemies with circular sword blades. She can spin up a back wheel, launch forward, and grab enemies with a shoulder barge, which you can then use to push them into environmental hazards. And she can also move faster and regenerate health, but this costs stamina. For her specials, she has a chain that she can use to yank enemies back towards her. She has an oil slick where she can drop a puddle that slows down enemies, and she has a whiplash, which allows her to unleash a flurry of whipping blades that damage all nearby enemies. And then for her supers, she either has the burnout that allows her to damage enemies and knock them away, or she has turbocharge, which will temporarily increase her damage, lifesteal, and max health. Your second heavy is El Bastardo, who is, of course, the cowboy-looking guy with the twin blades. He looks pretty awesome. He's got machetes, which, of course, allows him to hack up the enemies and steal their energy for your life support backpack. He can evade to dodge out of harm's way, but it does cost stamina. And he has a life support passive move, which provides protective shields, and it powers up your basic attacks and empowers your specials. He's got Leap of Faith, which allows him to leap to locked-on enemies, stunning them on impact. He's got Death Spiral, where he can become a spinning tornado, which is really cool, kind of reminiscent of those spinning berserker moves in like Diablo or like World of Warcraft. And of course, you have Empower, where he can steal life from nearby enemies, and he can then grant that energy to life support shields. For his supers, he has either Unbreakable, where he can't be killed for a short time and he deals damage for extended durations, or he has Overload, where your life support overloads, dealing constant damage to nearby enemies. As for your other tank, Makuta, he is really cool. He fist fight, he of course goes around and punch enemies because he's a big guy. He also has Slap 'em Good, where each combo input can be held for extended slaps and special punches, and you can also toggle his stance because he's got this interesting little circular spherical ball in his stomach, and you can either have the Pepeke stance, which increases your movement speed, or the Aura stance, which will allow you to constantly regenerate health. He's got a barge where you can literally run and dash into enemies. He's got Legate or Healthy, but depending on your stance, you can either cleanse yourself if you're in the Pepeke stance and provide a speed boost, or you can heal yourself and nearby allies in the Aura stance. And for the Repellent, you can create a burst of energy that pushes enemies away. For your supers, you have Can't Touch This, where you make yourself and your nearby allies temporarily invulnerable. And you have Katamari, which is a really clever play on words. I like that a lot. You roll into a ball, hence the Katamari. But because his birthplace is New Zealand, then of course you've got the Maori. So it's a Katamari, which is clever. I like it. I'll see what you guys did there. And you turn into a ball, you roll through enemies, and you knock them away. For your assassins, you have Damon, who is my favourite guy. He's the one that I played with at E3. He is incredibly cool. He's basically like your, ninja assassin character with the really cool Oni mask and the spray paint cans all over him. He's got Graffiti Blade, where you can slice through enemies. He can evade again, he can dodge for stamina, and he can wall jump, which is pretty handy for getting around the stage, getting to some of the key locations. You've got Shift, which allows you to dash forward. You have Stealth, where you can temporarily go invisible, and you can then sleep enemies. And you have your Shuriken, so you can throw them to drain enemies' health and slow them down, which is again incredibly important for team play. For your supers, you either have Death Mark, which grants you extra damage against your marked target, and killing them will refresh your super for a short time, or you have Shadow Strike, which is the really cool one where you rapidly strike enemies in range for a percentage of their max life in damage. Also, just to be very clear, I apologise I don't necessarily have gameplay to illustrate all of this. We're basically working through trailer footage and B-roll footage because that's currently all that is publicly available. But again, once we do get some more stuff, I will of course aim to give you guys some more in-depth, more accurate videos. We then also have Gizmo, who is another assassin. She has a GG gun, which is like a bolt gun, which has an increased fire rate over time, and she can evade at the cost of stamina. She can throw bombs that stick to enemies. She has a turret that she can deploy that automatically fires at nearby enemies, and she also has a bouncer where she can drop down a jump pad that lasts for a few seconds and can also be used by allies. So again, really good for getting around the environment. As for her supers, she can either ride a giant missile and detonate it for an explosion, or she can call in a mech suit with extra armor and a flamethrower. So yeah, she's pretty cool. You then have Maeve, who's this sort of like interesting witch-looking tech character. She has Zap, which allows her to fire bolts of energy from electrified fingertips. She has Evade, again, to roll at the cost of stamina. And she has a passive called Schadenfreude, which, killing an enemy, instantly resets all special cooldowns. She can drop a cage on enemies as one of her specials, which is a trap. She can vanish to disappear and become invulnerable for a short time. And she can also siphon life from enemies, which again, very useful. As for her supers, Peekaboo, she can enter her cauldron and teleport to any visible enemy, stunning them on arrival, or she has Toil and Trouble, where she can summon a ball of energy that explodes with spectacular damage. And then finally, for the rock gods out there, you have Nidhogger, who's basically like your rocker. He's got a guitar as a weapon, like an actual guitar, or well, it's like an axe guitar. And you can hack and slash enemies with this. You have Shredder, where you can charge and release static energy that bounces between enemies. You can again evade, and you have Feedback, where the axe attacks against burning enemies grant lifesteal. You have Power Slide, where you can leave a trail of fire that causes enemies to burn. You have Fire Breath, where you can breathe a cone of fire, burning enemies and causing heavy damage. And you have Boomitar, where you can throw your guitar to slow enemies, and if it hits them on return, then they're stunned instead. So you can either slow or stun. You then have Death Growl for your super, where you can silence all nearby enemies with a deafening roar, or you have Ride the Lightning, where you can stun all surrounding enemies with an epic guitar solo. So he's pretty cool, and you probably see him in the gameplay riding around on a skateboard or like a hoverboard, because that's also a really cool component of the game. You actually have hoverboards to get around the stage, so if you die and you respawn, then you can hop on that, you can glide around, and there's obviously going to be a customization component to that, because there was a unique hoverboard that we got if we kind of attended E3. There's like a little kind of code you could redeem, so that clearly goes to show that there will be plenty of customization options. I mean, in games like this, there's always going to be different costumes and things like that, but the fact there's also custom hoverboards is pretty exciting, so can't wait to sort of see just how the customization options pan out in this game. But then finally, for the support characters, you have Kulev, who is this like weird zombie looking snake guy. Basically, he can spit out acid at his foes. He can also evade, and he has a passive called Lucky Charm, where he can continuously heal nearby allies. For your specials, you have Sacred Ground, which summons a ward that damages enemies and heals allies. You have Good Omen, which allows you to shield an ally, and you can double tap this to cast it on yourself. And you have Curse, where your target takes increased damage from all sources. For your supers, you either have the ability to empower all allies with bonus damage, speed, and defense, or Bamboozle, brilliant word, I love that word. You can mind control an enemy, bending them to your will. Alternatively, you have Miko, who is this kind of tribal character. She has an Augmatic Staff, where she can fend enemies off with Flowing Staff combos. She can also evade, and she has a Regenerator passive, where Staff impacts heal a nearby ally with the lowest health. So if you can basically stand next to someone who's on low health on attack, then you can heal them just by doing that. She has Chain Heal Special, where she can heal an ally, then bounce that to a second target for half the amount, or you can double tap it to cast on yourself. She has Kinetic Shield to deploy a Dome Shield that blocks enemy projectiles and beams, and she has Stasis to freeze the target in place for a short time. For her supers, she can either grant Stealth to all allies and Reveal to all enemies, and Stealth allies are also healed over time, and she also has Life Force, where she can channel a powerful heal on an ally. And then finally, the last one is Zero Cool, who basically like hovers around in this little lazy boy chair, and he has Arcade Gun, so he can shoot enemies. He has Evade, he has Nitro, which is an upward air boost, and he has a Defrag passive where life rapidly regenerates whilst he's not in combat. For his specials, he's got Firewall to drop an impassable wall. It doesn't block attacks or projectiles, but it just stops people from moving through. You have Recharge, which is a continuous healing beam whose power diminishes while active and recharges while inactive. And you have Bot, which deploys a bot to follow an ally, and it auto fires and can see through stealth. For your supers, you have 1-Up, where for a short time, the targeted ally will immediately return to life if killed. Or you have Upgrade Protection, which temporarily increases armor of all nearby allies. So, those are quick rundowns of all the characters. Of course, again, as mentioned, I really did want to show you some of these because seeing these in action is completely different to hearing about them. But as you can see, there's a pretty kind of broad selection of abilities, and they are really, really cool in combat. Of course, the other two silhouettes we see, one of them looks like a little robot character, so I'd assume maybe that might be the tank character or the heavy. And we then have this sort of punk-looking character as well, who could well be the support. So that, for the time being, is pretty much it. That's a rundown of the characters, the world, what Bleeding Edge is. Of course, as mentioned, there is a closed alpha happening right now, but it is a NDA alpha, so no information, no recording, anything like that. But typically they always start that way, and then they open that up into some kind of open alpha, open beta. So hopefully once we get to that point and we can all start checking it out ourselves, then for those of you guys that are unsure, you may well be convinced. But anyway, that's it for the time being. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. And of course, do stay tuned because I do plan to continue covering this game as more information becomes available. But for the time being, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. I really hope you guys enjoyed that video. Remember to hit that subscribe button and also click on the little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next upload. Also, don't forget, you can check out 269 and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. Be sure to drop by and get involved. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.